You know, given that this game literally takes place in hell, I'm kind of shocked they didn't try and call it Soul Train. Monster Train. This is something that I have been playing. I think I played it on stream once. Mostly been playing it in my own time. It is, I mean, the easiest way to describe it is Slay the Spire Junior. Except that's also kind of unfair. In some ways, it actually has larger and broader options for deck building than Slay the Spire, at least the original Slay the Spire. I know there's a sequel out now. I haven't played it. But at the same time, I'm just looking at the fact that when I first beat this game, because I've beaten it quite a few times on a fair few runs, uh, it made me go, oh, I thought this would keep going a lot longer than that. Whereas when you start getting into full runs of Slay the Spire, you're looking at over an hour, maybe even an hour and a half, sinking into time on this. Whereas with Monster Train, half hour. A run is a half hour if you beat it, and if you don't, it's shorter than that. And so that I think that's one of the ways it feels. It's definitely far less of an endurance than Slay the Spire becomes as it goes. But let me, rather than just compare it to Slay the Spire, although that is pretty valid, what is this thing? This is a deck building progression game where you pick sort of the type of starting cards that you're going to work with. And then as you work through each segment, you get into combat. If you survive it, you have options to gain more cards, power up the cards that you have, regain health if you've lost some of that, duplicate your cards, get rid of cards, get special items that'll give you various bonuses, etc., etc., etc. The premise is you are actually fighting on the side of hell. Hell is being invaded by angels, and you have to stop them. You have to reignite the heart of hell by riding the monster train all the way to the heart of hell. The main way that it's kind of interesting and varies is that there's three levels of a thing. So like, whereas in a lot of these deck builders, like, well, here's your opponents, lay out your cards, try and take them on. You do that, but there's like three layers of it because you set up your stuff. Here come the invaders on the bottom level. Whatever ones your forces don't take out in one turn, move up one level. And so you've got to manage multiple levels of creatures and tactics, because if they get to the very top level, because there's three levels where you can actually put something to try and stop them. If they get to the top level, that's the heart of your train, and that's where they can start doing actual damage to you that accumulates, and the heart of your train being destroyed is what actually ends the game. So that's kind of an interesting way to do it. The way each sort of round of combat works is, well, not each round, but each sort of segment of combat is you have to go multiple rounds against what's coming at you, and then the leader of that particular area shows up, and they are just bigger and stronger. And boy, I hope you've had the time to lay out some cards that are going to be able to take this thing on. Otherwise, you are in a fair bit of trouble. And I said in some ways there's broader and more options than Slay the Spire. Slay the Spire had four different types of sort of, I don't even remember what they're called, but the four different classes that you could go with, and each one had multiple strategies that you could do with them, but it was working off these single pool of cards. There, unless you get DLC in Monster Train, there's also four. But the thing is, you pick a primary and a secondary. So the primary gives you like a champion card that you get to have, but then the rest of your deck is made up of a mix of your primary class and the secondary one that you've picked as well. And they do sort of divide up in ways that you would no, it's not even four, it's five. They kind of divide up in the ways that you would sort of expect. Like there's one that's primarily focused on monsters dealing damage. There's a much more magic focused one. There's one that is more focused on high defense and like causing damage to people who attack you. There's two that are kind of built around different versions of kind of burning through your own forces. One where it's like, oh, you burn through these things to make these other units stronger, and then there's one that's just like your units can be pretty powerful. Even if the enemies don't kill them, they will burn out on their own pretty quick. So you better have a way to replenish them and keep them going. So there's a fair amount of variety, not just with which one you pick, but which one you pick as your backup, as your secondary. There's a fair bit of variety in this, a lot more than I was expecting, which was part of why I ended up getting a little bit surprised at how short the game is. It's like a snack version of Slay the Spire in a lot of ways, but the real fun there is just unlocking everything, which at this point I have mostly done. There's a couple of things I haven't unlocked yet, and once I do finish unlocking everything, I might stop playing, even though there's a couple of combinations of decks I haven't beaten the game with yet. The thing is, like, I kept playing Slay the Spire long after I'd unlocked everything, just so that I could say I beat it with every class. This one, I don't think I'm necessarily going to feel the need to do that. This one, the big energizing thing I got was just seeing new things unlock, adding new things to the mix. Like, ooh, I want to try that out, and I'm starting to hit the limit on that. But it's been fun getting there. So if you like these kind of deck building games, this is a fun, nifty little alternative. It's not the deepest, but sometimes you don't always want the deepest. Sometimes, honestly, it's nice to have a snacky version of a thing that otherwise, like, I don't have time to do a full run of Slay the Spire. I don't have that kind of time right now. I just don't. I could do a run on Monster Train. That sounds questionable, running a Monster Train. I feel like I could have worded that better. Regardless, though, I had fun with this. It was a good time, and if that is the kind of game that you enjoy, yeah, I'd say this is worth checking out if you want something that isn't going to become quite as much of a massive time sink, at least in terms of how long the runs themselves get. Because like this, the length of these runs basically top out at half an hour. So for some of us who can get trapped in the whirlpool of these things, that's no bad thing. But Monster Train, have you played it? What'd you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon pays the bills, and enables me to do this as my living. Even if you can't help me out that way, like and share and subscribe. They help me out as well. Don't worry too much about it, though. We take a relaxed attitude around here, so you can just come on back next time you need a break. And now it's time to thank my highest supporting patrons: Robin Moore, Goddess Elida, Zubin Lutfula, Welsh Wrestling Geeks, Oliver B., Melissa Pedersen, Movie Turtle, Ulrich Bogdan, Loki Eris, Melinda Walters, Auntie Kate 808, Becky Sparks, Renabulax the Poodle, Tracy Scrabbit, Angry Casperl, Dave Hall, Quite Bearish, Rosalind Bennett, Adam RDL Taylor, Pal Barabajoggle, Mira G, and Sir Didymus is my favorite. You can hear me try and say your name while dealing with these guys crawling all over me by checking out the reward tiers on my Patreon. See you next time.